All right. Ahayah, Bahasham, Yashiya, Barak. Shabbat, Shalom, Barak, Athah. Qam Yashar'Al. Welcome to World War III. Our reference today will be Ephesians chapter 6, verse 2. Let's read that real quick. Honor thy father and thy mother, which is the first commandment with promise. And that's King James Version on public domain. Now, this message will be entitled Principalities and Powers. Now, real quick, in Matthew chapter 17, verse 2, Mark chapter 9, 2 through 3, and Luke chapter 9, 28 through 36, you have the transfiguration of the Messiah, or the transfiguration of the Christ. Now, transfiguration is not a Hebrew word, but this is the word that Christians put in there, so that's what we're using today for your understanding. Now, the prophesied Messiah found in Hebrew culture, which you'll find the Messiah is in the book of Daniel, is here documented talking with Moses, the lawgiver, and Elijah, the prophet. Remember that. The quick note, there's major religions out there like Shintoism of the Japanese Ethno-Religion. They believe in the Kami. And the Kami is like in Japanese for the holy powers. The holy powers of their ancestors. The emperor, the former emperor of Japan, and his descendants even today, are said to descend from the gods. This is a teaching that they still hold dear today. Even though a democratic republic government is in Japan, given to them by their teachers, the democratic spreaders, Greco-Roman government, they have their ethno-religious or their indigenous religion of Shintoism, and they believe that their ancestors held power. Going over to Buddhism of the Hindu indigenous peoples, they believe in the Devi, which is goddess in Sanskrit, or the Deva. You may have heard that word before, which is God in Sanskrit. Again, the divine powers, male and female divine powers of their ancestors. The Akua of the Hawaiian Tiki totem. Akua, meaning God or the gods. It's of their ancestors. Pre-colonial, they had nothing to do with sharing their ancestral observance. Had nothing to do with sharing it. Now, totem identification comes from the Chippewa word, Ododem, or meaning his kinship group, and it signifies a blood relationship. Once again, pre-colonial, they had nothing to do with sharing their ancestral observances. That's what they did automatically, because their ancestors were godlike. They were powerful. They created their nation, sort of say. And so when we get to the New Testament of the Bible, you're going to see these New Testament characters go back to their ancestors. Need I remind you, at the transfiguration of Christ, it was no other group of people coming to visit Christ. It was Moses the lawgiver, and it was Elijah the prophet. When Elijah got on the chariot of fire, Elisha asked him to leave a portion of his spirit. And Elisha got the spirit of Elijah on him to do all the miracles and all the stuff that he did back in the Old Testament. Well, here you have the Messiah saying in Matthew chapter 11, verse 14, that Elijah the prophet came in the spirit of John the Baptizer, John the Baptist. Or let me explain that correctly. John the Baptist is the resurrected Elijah come back to life. And again, you have Jesus's ancestors, both Moses and Elijah, visiting him at a transfiguration. Now let me make this make sense to you. The ancestors, the angelic ancestors, and sometimes Christianity will not discuss this, or cannot discuss this, or maybe don't even know that this is happening. But in this book, it explains fairly well that the angels are the ancestors of the Hebrews. And you got a book that is specifically pointing to the people that it belonged to, and you have these religions, these Abrahamic faiths, saying, oh, well, we can do better, or the law is done away with, we have the New Testament and all this other stuff, or the Quran, or whatever the Talmud, or all these other things that they're trying to add on to make it available for other people. Well, the Bible itself, from what is called the Old Testament to the New Testament, it is a history of a people who are only concerned about their forefathers. In fact, if we go to the book of Acts chapter 24, verse 14. Now you may think that, Paul's journeys were, he's going out to these foreign people, whatever. No, he's going directly out to the Hebrew Israelites that were living in those lands. We'll come back to Acts 24. Let's go to Ephesians. Let's go to Ephesians real quick. Ephesians chapter 4, verse 17. This I say therefore, and testify in the Lord, that ye henceforth walk not as other Gentiles walk, in the vanity of their mind. Now he's telling these Ephesians, don't walk like the other people around you. Why? Because there's a group of Hebrews in the land of Ephesia, and they don't need to be acting like the people that are surrounding them, because they're true Hebrews. But again, Christianity has translated and transliterated this book to fit their purposes, having nothing to do with other nations. Now, again, the Bible specifically says that there's one law for the Hebrew and the strangers that dwell among us, but the Holy Scriptures is specifically for the Hebrew Israelites. A little tongue twisted there. And again, moving on, if this verse, the title verse, Ephesians chapter 6, verse 2, if he's reminding them to honor thy father and thy mothers, which is the first commandment with promise, if Paul is reminding these Ephesians, this honor thy father and thy mother is in Mosaic law. So the people around them don't have a Mosaic law to remember to honor their fathers and mothers with promise. They don't have that. And you will find that law in Exodus chapter 20, verse 13, and Leviticus chapter 19, verse 3. So again, Paul going out to evangelize other groups of people in these different regions, Rome, the book of Romans, the book of Corinthians, Ephesians, the Colossians, all these books are literally letters sent out to the ancient Hebrews living in those lands. And he's trying to remind them that there's promises in the book of the law. One more time, the ancestors of the Messiah, Moses and Elijah, visited the Messiah during the Transfiguration. There was no other groups of people. There was no Romans visiting him in that Transfiguration. It was Moses and Elijah. Now, to seal this, And I want y'all to know, and again, let's get back to this Acts real quick. I'm gonna seal it real quick. In Acts chapter 24, verse 14, but this I confess unto thee, that after the way which they call heresy, so worship I the God of my fathers, believing all things which are written in the law and in the prophets. This is the Apostle Paul talking to the Sanhedrin and all the people that were questioning his authority on why is he going stray from the Sanhedrin. And the Sanhedrin were the Hebrew court of that time that had been, I say, additions and subtractions have been made because they were conquered by the Greco-Romans. They were conquered by the Babylonians, all these different groups, the Assyrians of the Greco-Romans. So they were conquered by these different groups. So they had this new type of law system that, they would run by the Hebrews, but they had to listen to a different sort of say kingdom over them. They couldn't do anything without this other kingdom being over them. But then they tried to pretend like they were practicing Hebrew law or Mosaic law. So what Paul was saying in this verse, Acts chapter 24, verse 14, is that after the way that they call heresy, so he worshiped the God of his fathers. Now, you can't worship the God of your fathers if you are of a different nation trying to look at Hebrew Israelites or trying to look at the Holy Scriptures. You can't honor your fathers and mothers if you're looking at the ancestors of other people. You can't honor your fathers and mothers if you're looking at the angels of other peoples. And I'm going to prove to you guys today that even the angels are our ancestors. I think that's far-fetched? Here we go. In the book of Revelations, chapter 19, verse 10, hear me clear. And I fell at his feet to worship him. And this is John the Revelator talking about an angel that he's having a discussion with. One more time. And I fell at his feet to worship him. And he said unto me, see thou do it not. I am thy fellow servant, equal, and of thy brethren, brothers, kinship, relationship, totem pole, and have the testimony of Jesus, the Messiah, and worship God. So again, let me read that real quick. And I fell at his feet to worship him. And he said unto me, see thou do it not. I am thy fellow servant, and of thy brethren that have the testimony of Jesus. Worship God. So he stopped John the Revelator from worshiping him because John the Revelator saw that he was a power. And angels, which simply means a minister of God or minister to God or, godly minister. So the Revelator, John the Revelator, was looking at him like this is a powerful person. And angels are always described as looking like men. More so looking like us because we come from them. But Christianity won't tell you that part. It's in the Bible, but they're not going to tell you that part. You're lost in translation and transliteration. And again, this is in the book for all of you guys to see. Now, folks, principalities and powers. A principality is a level of power like you got levels in heaven. Or here, as you have on earth, we have levels of power, levels of governments, and areas that are of high significance and low significance. You have first world countries and third world countries. You have the classes, you have high class citizenship and poverty. And that's basically what principalities is. And powers in Hebrew. Powers simply means a force, sovereignty, or God, And even the God of the Bible himself says that he is a God amongst the gods, meaning he is a God amongst the angels who are literally in charge of all these principalities. Again, something that Christianity won't tell, the masses. And this Christian identity, they went and circumnavigated their globe and forced this idea on indigenous people who were already in tune with their own ancestors. I'm going to stop right there. Please visit us at Indigenous Hebrew Israelite Awakening on Facebook. If you guys would like to subscribe or, make a donation, please make a donation. I'll give you guys the links below. I am a Hebrew Israelite, documented Hebrew Israelite. I am a documented conscientious objector, international that is. And I'm also a minister and administrator of peace. Hebrew Israelite out.